Welcome! In this video, Automatic Identification System data, referred to as AIS, will be used to plot the direction of travel of a ship on a leaflet map inside an RShiny app. The user will be able to select a ship from a drop-down list. The map then updates to show the path along which the ship has travelled, with the direction of travel indicated by the colour within the circle. The darker the colour, the more recent the position. The data has kindly been openly provided by the Norwegian Coastal Administration. So what is AIS? AIS is a system on board a ship which tracks its location. Another term I will use in this video is MMSI, which stands for Maritime Mobile Service Identity, and it is a series of 9 digits which in this project identifies the ship. Let's gather our data. The data can be found on the Norwegian Coastal Administration's website, and I will put a link in the video description to the source which I have used in this project. Once on this page, all I need to do is go to the right hand side where we see Explore, click on the drop down list and click Download. Let's have a look at the data. In the top row, you can see that it contains the column headers, and the rows which follow contain the data for the relevant columns. In this project, all I will use is the MMSI, which references the ship, the longitude, which is LON, and the latitude, LAT. As you can see, there are other columns which may be useful to you in other projects you choose to create. The other point to note is that the values are separated by a semicolon, and this is going to be important when we come to upload our data into our RShiny app. So without further ado, let's go to our RShiny app and start uploading the data. Once inside RStudio, I go to the top and do File, New File, Shiny Web App, and I will call mine AIS_Norway and click Create. First thing I always do is make sure that the app is going to run. So if I click Run App, it should load with some dummy data and dummy diagrams within it. There we go, our app has loaded with our dummy diagrams and data, so that looks good as a starting point. I will now remove these diagrams because I don't require them, and I will change the title of the page. So close my app. To help anyone else who may use my code, I will write a purpose at the top of the app. So my purpose is to plot on map direction of travel of selected ship. I don't require the comments beneath that section, so I remove them. Above Library Shiny, I will put in a comment, load packages. Define UI, we're not going to draw a histogram, remove that. My title, I will change to map of path travelled by ship. I don't need a sidebar anymore. The point to note here is we've got 3 opening brackets, only 2 closing, which means we need to remove a 3rd closing down here. I will keep a main panel in, but it won't be a plot, so let's remove that. My server logic, we're not going to do a histogram. And then in the service section, I can remove everything between this opening curly bracket and this closing one. OK. Then just run my app to make sure it still works and I haven't over-deleted items. That looks good. That's all we expect to have now is a title to our page. We are ready to move on to the next stage, which is to pull in the data. I put a comment, load data, and then my data frame, which I'm going to bring in, I will call AIS. I need to feed in a read of a CSV file because it was a CSV file which was downloaded from the Norwegian website. Here I go back to where I've saved my file and copy its file path. In my case, I've saved it on my desktop. And if you're struggling to find the file path, quite often if you just go to the file and right click, it will allow you to either copy as path, or there might be a properties box, which when you go into it, it may give you the path name there. I need to change my backslashes to forward slashes. If you recall from the CSV file, the names of the column were in the first row, which is referred to as the header row. So here I need to do comma, space, header equals true, and then a comma, and then remember our data is separated by a semicolon, so we need to do sep equals, open double quotes, and inside our double quotes we put a semicolon. Now if we run our app, our data should load, but remember you won't see anything because you haven't asked for it to display yet on a page. That looks good, we've not broken the app. If you're used to using our scripts but not RShiny, what you may notice is that when we've loaded the data, in the global environment, nothing appears. And I find it quite helpful to be able to see our data as we go along. Therefore, to do that, what I will do is I will take our load data line of code, copy it, and into a new file of an R script. I will paste the code, and now if I run this code, in my environment section, I can see my AIS data. I have loaded in 665 observations or rows with 11 variables or columns. And if you click on the AIS, you can then see the data which has come in. It all looks good. If at any point you want to know a bit more about what some of these descriptions means, there is plenty of resources on the web. Let's now go back to our app and start creating our map. So in the app, underneath Library Shiny, I will load the library Leaflet, which will be used for the map. You will need to have the Leaflet package installed for this to run, and if you don't already have that, all you need to do is go to install, put in the name of the package and click install. Very simple to do. Now that that's installed, we want to go down to our main panel section. In the main panel, I will put a comment saying that we're creating a map, and the map is a leaflet output. Open brackets, open double quotes, and we need to give our map a name. I will call my map Locations. So every time I want to refer to the map, I refer to Locations. Now in the server section, we need to actually create the map. So I will put in a comment here, create map. And to do that, we want to output a dollar symbol, and then what we want to output is locations, the name of our map. And into that, we need to feed the render of leaflet we do opening brackets and then opening curly brackets, and then I will put a few empty blank spaces between the two curly brackets to allow me to put in more code. So here I'm going to put a comment, set up map. So our map is called locations, and into locations we need to feed Leaflet the data, which equals AIS, which is the name of our data set. Then into locations we need to add tiles. Onto locations, so we type in locations again. Then onto locations, we also want to be able to add a circle to represent where the ship has been. So we add circles onto locations, and the location will be where we have a longitude and a latitude. So if we just quickly go back to our data set here, we can see that our longitude is in a column called lon, and our latitude is in a column called lat. So that's all we need to tell the map. So for longitude, LNG, we tell them to go to tilde, lon, comma, which was where our data is. And then for latitude, LAT, we tell them to go to tilde, lat. Let's now run our app and see if we have managed to add our data points. Yes, that looks good. Our data points are there. It looks messy at the moment because it has taken all 665 dots and just dumped them onto the map. But we will now change that and make it a bit more user-friendly. But so far, so good. Let's close our app. I will now create a drop-down list to hold the names of the ships to allow the user to make their selection. So back in the app, in the main panel, but above map, I will put a comment saying drop-down list of ships. Then we create the drop-down, and to do that, we just put in UI, then output with a capital O, and we need to give our drop-down list a name. So I will call it ship select. After the closing bracket, we need to put a comma. Now we need to create our drop-down list in the server section. So if you scroll down and above the map, I will put in a comment saying create ship drop-down list. And to create the drop-down list, what we need to do is put in output again, $, and then we put in the name of the drop-down list. So up here we called it ship select. So down here we type in ship select. And we need to say that it renders capital U, capital I. We have UI up here, so we've got UI down here. Open brackets, open curly brackets. Again, I will insert a few rows to make the code easier to read. And all we now need to do to create our drop-down list is say that we want our user to select input. That's their role. We need to give the user selection a name. So I will call the selection pick ship. Because remember, the drop-down's got all ships, but the user only selects one. So that's why we've got two different names going on here. Then onto my drop-down list at the top, I want to tell the user what to do. So I will put a comment saying choose a ship. After the double quotes, another comma, and then I need to populate the drop-down list. So I need to say that their choices equals and put in a C because to allow a list to be created. And if we now at this point go back to our data set, in AIS, what we will want the drop-down value to do is contain the MMSI, which references the ship. Now, if you want to know the name of the actual ship, if you do a search on the internet, you will quickly find out what the name of the ship for the relevant MMSI is. But because it's not in the data set currently, I will be just using the ship number as the reference. As you can see, a ship can appear more than once, and that's in line with expectations because we want to see the number of different places it's been at. I, though in my drop-down list, do not want 665 rows. I just want the MMSI number to appear once. Therefore, to do that, when we populate our drop-down list, we just want the unique values. So go back to our code, and in here we type unique. And inside the double brackets, the unique is going to be of the AIS $MMSI column. Okay, let's now run our app and see if this works. We have a drop-down list that looks promising, and if you look, you can see that we have a very much shorter list of numbers. There's definitely not 600 odd items appearing. Now at the moment, if you clicked on any of these ship references, the map won't update. And that is because we've not yet told the map to change when the user makes a selection. So these two items are currently operating independently of each other. And that is what we will now turn our attention to. Back in our app, if we go down into the Create Map section, and in the Render Leaflet section, I am going to put in a few extra blank rows above Setup Map, and here we will put in our code to filter our dataset before it gets displayed on the map. What we are looking for is that when the user makes a selection, it creates a subset of the AIS dataset containing only the information for the ship selected. So to do that, I will put in a comment and say bring in ship selected. We need to give our new subset of the data a name. So we will call it filtered, and we will say it equals a subset bracket of AIS, and the subset is based on the AIS $MMSI column, and when it equals, so that's a double equals we need to put in here, so be careful, double equals, and then the selection. So our input $, and remember that up here we called our input pick ship, so that is what goes in here, pick underscore ship. Okay, the other change that we need to make at this stage is we go slightly further down, and where we've got locations leaflet data equals AIS, we delete the AIS because now all we want to show is the filtered subset. Let's now run our app and see if this works. Looking good. Let's now select another ship. We can zoom it out just to get a bit more information about the area. All looks good. Now all we need to do is give it a direction of travel. So we will close our app and go back to our studio. Back in the app, In this Setup Map section, underneath Add Tiles, I will insert a few blank rows because I will be adding additional code. I will go to Location, Add Circles. Now after the latitude, I will put a comma, and what I will do first of all is change the colour of the circles, because at the moment the circles are blue and they are against the blue background of the sea. And I want the colour to stand out more, especially given for the direction of travel we will start with a faded colour and increase the depth of the colour. And if we use a faded blue colour, it's not going to quite pop the same. The circles are made up of a fill colour and an outline colour, so we need to change both of them, and I will use red. So to change the outline colour, I just type colour equals double quote marks red, comma, then fill colour equals, and again double quote marks red. Back above the Add Circles line, to show the direction of travel, we are going to change the opacity of the circle. So we will start with a very faded colour and increase the opacity to make it a more solid colour as it travels. To do this, we will need to divide the opacity by the number of data points within our data set. And opacity goes from 0 to 1. So 1 is the maximum value we can have. We will start at 0 and then we spread the increase in opacity over the number of data points. Therefore, the first thing we need to do is count the number of rows in our data set. To count the rows, we will set up a variable called R and just say in row bracket and put in the name of our data set, filtered. So that will count the number of rows. I set up a variable X, and this will calculate how much each time we need to increase the opacity by. And that depends on the number within a data set. So we will take 1 and we will divide it by R. This will become clearer in a moment. We will set up a variable called Y and we will set it to 0. Because what we are now going to do is create a loop. And in that loop, what happens that each time it goes round, we want to take Y and add X to it to keep increasing the opacity. So we need to start our loop at 0, which is the most transparent, and then increase it as we go to be more solid. So we will put in, still above locations, a for loop. So for I in 0 to the number of rows in our data set, opening curly brackets, and I need to delete my closing curly brackets here and go to after locations, add circles, and add it back in here because our circles need to go through our loop. In here we do Y and it is Y plus X. So this means that in the first time in the loop, Y comes in as 0. If, say, there was 20 rows in the data set, at this point X would equal 0.05. The next time the loop comes round, Y starts at 0.05. X is still 0.05. X doesn't change. Y then becomes 0.1. So the opacity changes, and so on until we reach our total of the number of rows. Because of this, we need to make another small change to our code. So after lon, we need to put in I. We need to tell it to go to the I position in the data set, and the same for latitude. We need to tell it to go to the relevant row that it's on for the latitude. After colour fill, we need to now put in opacity, and opacity will equal the Y value. We also need to change the fill opacity because opacity applies to the outline and the fill. So if we put in fill opacity, just going to scroll across so you can see this, and put in Y. There we go. Now the last thing we need to do in our code is underneath our curly bracket in our for loop, we need to call the map again, because if we don't, the map is effectively stuck in the loop. So we type locations. Now, hopefully, when you run your app, you should end up with a direction of travel. Let's do that now. Yay! So if I just zoom out, you can see where this ship has travelled. Let's choose another one. And again, you can see the direction of travel. Please remember that in your data set, the ships may have travelled on more than one day, hence why you might see some strange circles. So it's still up to you to keep going with your data set and refining it further. Maybe give a date filter or filter it yourself depending upon what your requirements are. So everything isn't all finished. This is just how to get to this stage. At the moment though, I am happy enough with my map. The only small additional change I will make, which is totally optional to you, is I will set the view of how the map should look when it initially loads. Like I say, it doesn't impact our work. But under add tiles, I'm typing locations, and I will bring in set view. I need to call the map locations. I'm going to give it a fixed coordinate to initially load on, which is 9.76, because that is roughly the centre of all my data points. Latitude equals, and again I'm going to just put in 59.01, again roughly centre, and I want the zoom on the map to be 14. If you want to know more about all these different terminologies, please check out the Leaflet website. They're really good at telling you what different types of things you can do with a map. There's all sorts of exciting things there. Okay, now if I reload my app, I can see a bit clearer that this is sailing in between islands. We have gathered data, plotted it onto a map in RShiny, and given the ship a direction of travel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to hear more from me, please click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.